Welcome to my final presentation on social justice for the built environment, creating equitable spaces. My name is Quratulain Furqan, and today we will explore how architecture and interior design can champion the needs of marginalized populations, ensuring that our built environments are inclusive and equitable for everyone. This presentation examines the factors needed to support marginalized populations across the world in the architecture, interior design, and continuing planning. Coming up, we will look at the current pitfalls and how we can create equity and how to provide for the underprivileged communities through research and case studies. We will explore the highs and lows of the issues and determine how we can improve to make a greater impact with the presentation. Architecture and interior design significantly influence our daily lives, shaping our interactions with the world. Social justice in the built environment involves designing with an understanding of the diverse needs of all community members, especially those who have been marginalized. First of all, we'll look into what is marginalization. Marginalization is a process by which certain groups of people are pushed to the edge of the society, limiting their access to resources, opportunities, and rights that are readily available to others. This can occur due to the various factors, including economical, social, political, or cultural discriminations. Examples of the marginalized groups include racial and ethnic minorities, people with disabilities, the LGBTQ community, and those living in the poverty. What is social justice for the built environment? Designing spaces that promote social equity and inclusion. It involves considering the needs of all users, especially marginalized groups, and ensuring that spaces are accessible to everyone. The ethical implication of architectural design. Ethical considerations are fundamental in architecture and design. Ethical consideration prioritizes the well-being, safety, and accessibility of users. It involves the sustainability, ensuring that our design do not harm environment or future generation. As a design, we have a moral obligation to create spaces that enhances the quality of life for all users. Prioritizing human well-being and comfort, embracing sustainability, ethics and the built environment. Ethics in the built environment involves ensuring that the design, construction, and maintenance of the building and spaces uphold principles of fairness, justice, and respect for all individuals. Here are the key aspects to consider. Everyone should have equal access to the building and public space, regardless of their physical disability, socioeconomic status, or cultural background. The built environment should promote sustainability and the health and the well-being of its inhabitants, engaging community members in the planning and design process to ensure that their needs and voices are heard and respected. Balancing aesthetic and functional integrity and fostering community engagement, cultural sympathy and presence, recognizing and respecting the cultural diversity of communities in this design in the design and use of space. Design mixed use developments that include residential, commercial, and recreational spaces to foster vibrant, inclusive communities. Creating spaces that encourage social interaction and community building. By adhering to these social ethical principles, we can create built environment that only meet functional needs but also contribute to overall well-being and equitable treatment of individuals. Here are some notable quotes from influential architects that touch on theme of architecture and social justice. Justice has a geography and the equitable distribution of resources, services and access is a basic human right. Liz Ogbo. Tado Ando, a Japanese architect, we borrow from nature the space upon which we build. Teddy Cruz, architecture and urban planning must engage the diverse culture, and economic fabric of communities. Now we will talk about the long-term impact of a social justice in the built environment. The long-term impact of thoughtful and inclusive design in the built environment can be profound, transforming communities and contributing to the social equity and well being. Here are several key areas where these impacts can be seen. Inclusive design fosters social interactions and community engagements, leading to the strong community ties as spaces that are accessible and welcoming. Inclusive design can also stimulate economic growth. It is also enhances it also enhances the aesthetic appeal and functionality of neighborhood, leading to the increased property values, and economic stability of residents. Access to the green spaces, recreational facilities, and safe walking and biking paths encourage physical activity.
Well on that. We can talk green buildings till we're green in the face. We kind of got the economic viability thing. Our work, it has a lot to do with money and income and lives and jobs, and so we got that. The third leg of the stool, the social justice one, the social equity one, this is one that we don't know what to do with. A lot of us don't come out of design school. We don't work in jobs where social equity is an issue really at all. Here's our client, here's our project, here's how we get it done, and we're good. But what participatory design does is that opens the door for that third leg of the sustainability stool, this social justice side. Because if you're talking to people who are actually going to be the community, the users of the community, and the building is just going to be, an aspect of this community. So even if you don't own the building, you're never going to use the building, it's still going to have an effect on your community, whether you have any vested interest in it or not. To engage people like that are essentially third party to the process in the design process, then you understand what their needs are and how the building can help you address the social needs of the community. If you don't ask them, you won't find out. Once they're part of the process, then you understand how architecture and design and building can support that social justice metric.
Exclusion and marginalization in design. Historically, many design practices have excluded certain groups, leading to marginalizations. This can be seen in the urban planning that prioritizes car travel over the pedestrian access or building that lack wheelchair accessibility. Let's look into the case study. Hammett Farms, UK is a prime example of inclusive design. This project transformed an old farm into a community hub with accessible feasible facility. The design includes ramps, wide roadways, and tactile surfaces, ensuring that everyone, regardless of mobility, can enjoy the space. This project highlights how thoughtful design can promote social inclusion and community. Another case study, the campus of Ed Roberts. Accessible public transit connections, wheelchair accommodating elevators, and tactile instructions for the blind are among the features. This building serves as an example of how inclusive design ideas may provide areas that are not only useful but also promote empowerment and dignity. Politics and economy. Political influence on the built environment. The political and the economic context greatly influence the built environment. Policies and funding priorities determine what gets built and from whom. Advocating for policies that support affordable housing, public spaces, and inclusive infrastructure is crucial for creating equitable environments. Governments establish zoning laws that indicates land use impacting everything from residential density to commercial developments. Political decisions determine the allocation of public funds for infrastructure projects such as roads, public transport, parks, and schools. These investments can either bridge or widen the gap between rich and undeserved communities. Moreover, the real estate market, driven by economic forces, influence property values and development patterns. Economic inequality often translates into differences in access to equality housing, education, healthcare, and recreational facilities. Cultural and religion. Culture and religion consideration play a significant role in design. Spaces should respect and reflect the culture and religion practice of the user. The Islamic Cultural Center in New York integrates traditional Islamic architectural element with modern design, creating a space that serves the cultural and religious needs of Muslim community while welcoming people of all backgrounds. The project shows how design can bridge cultural divides and promote understanding. Gender and sexuality in the built environment. Design with the gender and sexuality in mind means creating spaces that are safe and welcoming for all gender identities and sexual orientations. This includes providing gender neutral bathrooms, ensuring safety in the public space, and creating inclusive community centers. Example: Community Center San Francisco. The LGBT Community Center in San Francisco provides a safe and welcoming space for LGBTQ community. The design includes private consultation rooms, event spaces, supportive facilities, ensuring that all visitors feel respected and valued. Physical and sensory limitations. Inclusive design must accommodate physical and sensory limitations. This includes providing maps, tactile paving, braille signage, and acoustic treatment to assist those who with the hearing impairments. Designing for sensory inclusivity ensures that spaces are accessible to everyone regardless of their physical abilities. A good example is Gallaudet University, a leading institute for the deaf and hard of hearing, incorporates universal design principles throughout the campus. Addressing marginalization. Implementing policies that promote equity and inclusion, such as affirmative action, anti discrimination laws, and equitable funding for education and health. Providing economic opportunities through job training programs, small business support, and living wages. Ensuring equal access to equity education and addressing systemic biases within the educational system. While the research, I came across a documentary about a neighborhood in Washington, D.C., which I noticed the poor quality of home and vehicle on initial freeway into the city, and then suddenly came extreme wealth. It was visibly evident that the downtown core was very wealthy and predominantly white, while the surrounding communities were visibly run down and predominantly non white. Historically, this racial zoning was organized through the policies that allowed a certain neighborhood to have mortgages restricting home ownership to the people of specific communities.
1936, and the colors are still used today. These yellow areas here are areas that are the most restrictive. You can only build single family homes. The brown areas, a little bit less so. The red areas, you can build maybe more of a mix of row houses and some commercial activities, and the purple areas are even less restrictive. The next tool was redlining. Cities all over the country made maps like this one. This is DC's map from 1936, and the colors are still used today. These yellow areas here are areas that are the most restrictive. You can only build single family homes. The brown areas, a little bit less so. The red areas, you can build maybe more of a mix of row houses and some commercial activities, and the purple areas are even less restrictive. The next tool was redlining. Following the Great Depression, the federal government wanted to find ways to basically to insure people's mortgages so they wouldn't lose their homes. And one of the tools used to determine who could have access to these government-backed mortgages and in what areas was called redlining. There were maps like this made of cities all over the country. This is DC's map, and it shows Maryland and Virginia as well. The darker colored areas here are rated A, B, and C. These are generally the communities that have the highest end housing and are exclusively white neighborhoods. You can see a pattern emerge. Other areas had lower grades like C, D, E, um, F. These were in general white neighborhoods that were working or middle class. And then finally, the lowest grade of neighborhoods like H were black neighborhoods. And those were neighborhoods, all these lighter colored neighborhoods are basically increasingly off limits to um, mortgages and the opportunity to build generational wealth that comes with it. And even though redlining as a practice was outlawed in 1977, again, these tools all sort of converge to create a pattern that we still see in our schools today.
As design professionals, we have a responsibility to advocate the social justice in the built environment. This involves continuously educating ourselves about the needs of marginalized communities, challenging exclusionary practices, and promoting inclusive design principles. We must use our skills and platforms to create spaces that enhances the quality of life for all individuals. In conclusion, architecture and interior design have a power to shape our communities and influence our social interactions. By prioritizing social justice, we can create built environments that are inclusive, equitable, and empowering for all members of the society. The example of Hermon Farms and Access condominiums and other projects demonstrate how thoughtful inclusive design can make a significant impact.